All right. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the Women's Equality. So good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for the Montgomery County Women's Equality Closeout Commemoration to recognize 101 years of women voting. I'm so appreciative and thankful for all of our co-hosts and everyone that has joined us this evening to make this event possible. While we hoped that we could have celebrated this event in person, due to the Delta variant and concerns, we still wanted to ensure we brought you a great program. We have a great lineup of speakers joining us this evening. And so we have adapted our program for this virtual platform. In addition to 101 years of voting, we are also reminded that this is the 56th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act, granting Black women access to the ballot in an even shorter window for our Latina, Asian, and Indigenous women. I took the lead in planning the Montgomery County events because I am passionate about civic engagement and have a deep appreciation for our democracy and the power of our vote. I also wanted to ensure that the often forgotten or missing voices of the suffrage movement were highlighted and remembered during this time, along with more recognizable suffragists. Their sacrifices were varied, brutal, and degrading at times, yet they still found the strength to fight on. I say this so that as we're heading into election season next year, we're reminded and haunted by these brave women so that we can participate in policy discussions impacting our lives, and so we can have the same equal rights as our male peers. Alone, this endeavor would not have been possible, so thank you to all of our volunteers and co-hosts again. And I will start by announcing our co-hosting organizations. And first, we will go into the agenda. We will start with an overview of Women's Equality Day and the Equal Rights Amendment, the history and significance of Women's Equality Day, which will be shared by Amanda Learman. The importance of voting will be shared by Dr. Amina Johnson. Voting for the first time, we'll have remarks from Hannah O'Looney. And voting from an immigrant's perspective will be shared by Belle Leong Hong. And getting more women elected, Diane Fink. And last but not least, the balancing act of elected women by Council Member Nancy Navarro. We will also have a tribute to Linda Mahoney, whom this event would not have been possible without her vision. And although she is not with us here, we definitely want to celebrate her legacy and her fight for equal rights and voting rights for all. We will close out this event with reflections and a short Q&A with all of our wonderful speakers and co-hosts. So now we will recognize everyone that made this event possible. I first want to start by thanking Shepard Evans and Kimberly McClurkin Harris from Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, the Theta Omega Omega chapter. Kate Stewart, the mayor of Tacoma Park. Jeanette Feldner, president of Montgomery County chapter of NOW. Susan Horst, past state president of Business and Professional Women of Maryland and Montgomery County BPW. Jennifer Russell, co-president of Montgomery Woman. And we also have some others. We also have Sally Murick from the executive board of Montgomery MoCo Woman, We also have Christina Major, the Social Action Co-Chair of Eta Pi Zeta chapter of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. We also have Wilma K. Holmes from the Montgomery County Alumni chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, Silver Spring The Links Incorporated, and Clinton African Methodist Episcopal Zion Church and Montgomery Woman. We also have Melissa McKenna, President of Montgomery County's Business and Professional Woman, and Pamela Luckett, Senior Legislative Aide from the Office of Councilmember Will Chawando. And so without further ado, we're going to get into the program, and I'm going to turn things over to our technical production co-host, Kate Stewart.
Great, thank you so much, Lorianne, for that. As Lorianne said, I'm doing the tech this afternoon, this evening for us. So if you have any difficulties, please just put a note in the chat, and I'm happy to assist with that. In addition, I get to recognize some of the elected officials who have joined us today or will be joining us. Glad to see my colleagues from the Tacoma Park City Council, Councilwoman Casey Kostick and Councilwoman Talisha Searcy. We also have Councilwoman Denise Mitchell from the City of College Park. And tonight we'll be joined by Delegate Lorik Charkoudian and Delegate Charlotte Crutchfield, as well as our State Senator Susan Lee. So thank you to all of them who are joining us today. And we have a number of other officials and folks who will be on our panel today, and that will get introduced in a moment. It's really an honor to be here with all of you today to commemorate Women's Equality Day. It's been great to plan this and to get the chance to work with this great set of women again this year. And I will apologize ahead of time because last year my daughter Bridget actually did the tech for most of this, but she's gone to college of all things. And so if there are any hiccups, it's all on me today. And I just want to say, as Lorianne said, even though we commemorate the passing of the 19th Amendment, which secured women's right to vote, we know it was not equally extended to all women. It was not extended to Black women and other women of color. And we know all
Yeah, how am I going to get in?
and we are here today to really work toward making sure that we have unrestricted, unsuppressed voting rights in our country. And we know that democracy and securing a person's right to be active participants in that is not something we check a box for. As folks have said, that democracy is not a destination, but it is a journey. And I'm glad that we're all here together to continue the journey. And so as we do that, the first stop on our journey is an explanation of what is Women's Equality Day and the ERA. And I'm glad to introduce now Jeanette Feldman, President of the Montgomery County Now chapter. And Jeanette, we will turn it over to you. I think you may be muted.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. Some of this will be repeated, but hopefully by repeating it, you won't forget. 101 years ago, the 19th Amendment to the US Constitution granted most women suffrage, another word for the vote, in the United States. 2021 also marks the 56th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act, protecting everyone's right to vote, including Black, Latina, Asian American, and Pacific Islanders, women of color, and women of all backgrounds. This American story of tenacity, sacrifice, and overcoming by countless suffragists is an honor each time a woman legally casts her vote in an election. These brave women of the past were honored last August during the suffrage centennial, which continued this year due to COVID-19. We celebrate every year on August 26th, Women's Equality Day. Although the origins of the suffrage movement segregated women, it's exciting to see women of all backgrounds working together to commemorate the suffrage centennial. Some you will hear tonight. Women also take this opportunity, this anniversary of women's suffrage, to remind everyone that women are not yet fully equal in this country, and we renew our vow to fight for the Equal Rights Amendment, to get it enshrined in our US Constitution so that we can truly celebrate and enjoy our rights on Women's Equality Day and every day. Thank you. Sure.
Thank you, Jeanette, for those lovely remarks and a brief synopsis about the history and how we came to this evening. So we are going to get started with one of our first speakers, who will be speaking about the history and significance of Women's Equality Day. I will turn the program over to Sally Merrick, who will be introducing Amanda Learman. Thank you. And
hello, good evening, everyone. I have the honor and privilege to introduce Executive Director Amanda Brown Learman of Supermajority. She's the Executive Director, and which is Supermajority is an organization aimed at training and organizing women across age, race, and background to push for women's equity. At the helm, Amanda has leveraged her experience as an organizer to build a coalition of women who harness their collective power for lasting change. Amanda draws from her personal experiences and her commitment to building a multiracial coalition of women to enact significant political change. As a young woman, she understands the importance of bringing in the next generation of voters. As a Black woman, she grasps the power of intersectional allyship in the fight for both racial justice and gender equity. As a mother to 3 young girls, she knows what it means to be a working mom during the pandemic. With this unique perspective, Amanda can lift many of the experiences and issues of young Black women and mothers across the country, from paid leave to the Black maternal health crisis. Before her time at Supermajority, Amanda was the National Political Director for Rock the Vote, Executive Director of the White House's National Women's Business Council, Campaign Director of For Our Future, and Organizing Director of the Democratic National Committee during the 2018 midterms. I don't know how she did this, she's too young. She is a graduate of Dartmouth College and lives in Maryland with her husband, Kyle, and their 3 lovely daughters. I now give you Amanda Learman.
Sally, my mom always yells at me all the time too, because she does not understand my resume and how she's like, why can't you keep a job? It's usually what I get from my mom and my dad. But hi, everyone. Amanda here. This is our newest edition, Heart, who has joined me because having 3 children is really rough. And so my husband has the other 2 and I'm on baby duty and multitasking a little bit, but a pleasure to be with everyone tonight. The truth is that women have been getting it done for over 100 years. And we're here today because when our values were being ignored then, we made men listen. Women's Equality Day marks the beginning of our choices being accepted from the people who represent us, and it began with an outspoken, fearless woman taking on generations of patriarchy and misogyny. Her name was Bella, and after working as a lawyer and a political organizer, Bella, who was a feminist and a civil rights activist herself, won election as a Democratic congresswoman for New York. And shortly after taking office, she shared this idea to establish a day to commemorate what was a really long, hard fight that women went through to win the right to vote. And 2 years later, in 1973, Congress passed a joint resolution establishing Women's Equality Day. In the decades since then, we've celebrated it each year as a day to reflect not just on our successes in the long and ongoing fight for equality, but also the challenges that we still need to overcome. Because for all of the progress that we've made, we are still battling inequality every day. That's just the truth. And Women's Equality Day is on August 26th because it's the day that the 19th Amendment was passed. And again, people have covered this already, but that was the day that granted some women the right to vote. Many women were left out of that equation at that time, with Black women still facing today even significant barriers to voting, women of color facing significant barriers to voting. Speaking as a Black woman myself, Black women were met at the polls with grandfather clauses, literacy tests, poll taxes that stopped our votes and silenced our voices. And the Black women who led this charge, calling this out, there are many of them, Frances Harper, Mary Church Terrell, Ida B. Wells, are forgotten oftentimes in conversations around Women's Equality Day and celebrations around Women's Equality Day. So we wanted to make sure that we were saying their names tonight as well, because these women knew what we know now, that this country and our rights were not created equal. Black women, women of color have dealt with assaults on our rights since the founding of this country. And don't get me wrong, we've made tremendous progress over the several decades, but our rights are still at stake today. The same racist, misogynistic values that were upheld 100 years ago are still ingrained in our society. And we see that in states where there's an attack on our freedom, an attack on our power, making it harder for people that look like me to vote. States happening across the country. These laws are being passed. You have places like Georgia, Florida, Iowa, Arkansas, Arizona. It's getting harder and harder actually for some people, again, that look like me to vote. And these voting restrictions, it's an attempt to limit the power of women and to limit the power of people of color to address the issues that we care about, to do the work that we need to do. And so many of us have been pushing back, many of the folks that you're going to even hear from tonight. We have tremendous opportunity, even with the passage of the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, which would again strengthen the federal protections around the right to vote. And all of that is evidence that we're making progress. Of course, there's still much more work to do that needs to be done, and systemic racism and inequality, a lack of access to affordable healthcare, the denial, calling it the denial of paid family leave, all of that threatens women's livelihoods and our families' well-beings. But what gives me the most hope is that change is being made and our lives and our values are finally being prioritized, because there are people that look like me, that look like you, that are sitting in positions of power, sitting at the table. Women showed up 100 years ago, and we are still showing up every single day, despite how tired we are, how crazy this pandemic has been. Even we are showing up because that is what women always do. We've been the majority of voters in every presidential election since 1964, and we continue to speak up, flex our power. And this past election is evidence of that. We mobilized, we talked to one another, we created a coalition of women of all ages, races, backgrounds that turned out and voted and put in an administration that cares about the issues that we do. And they've actually started to prioritize policies that create support systems and opportunities for women and our families across the country, and to address the burdens of the pandemic so that women not just come out in a recovery mode from the pandemic, but actually come out stronger. And Black women, they do continue to carry us forward. I'm proud of that. They've set an example for everyone for how to keep fighting for equality in our country. And we have to follow this example. And so on Women's Equality Day, as we celebrate all of the strides that we've made toward equality, we also have to recognize that we cannot be truly equal until we address the racial and economic injustices that continue to exist. The more we organize, the more we vote, the closer we can become or get to overcoming these injustices and achieving a future where our lives, our bodies, our work, our families are valued, and that our government represents us. So today, it's a great day to reflect on all that has brought us to this point, the work and the work that has gone into that, and also to remember the work that we still have left to do. Again, I'm really hopeful, because if we keep fighting and if we keep voting together, I'm so confident that we can build upon the efforts of the countless women who have fought for our rights. I'm confident that we can overcome the injustices and, in fact, overturn policies that have left women behind. And I'm so confident ultimately that we can realize a better, more equal future for all of us.
Great. Thank you so much, Amanda, for those words. And I want to also recognize that we have members of the Board of Education here. In particular, Dr. Judy Daka is with us, and our other members of the Board of Ed are actually going to be speaking in a moment, and so they will be introduced momentarily. But now we want to turn it over to Jennifer Russell, who is the co-president of Montgomery Women. And if I can find you, Jennifer, I will spotlight you. Here you are.
Thank you so much. I have the pleasure of introducing Dr. Amina Johnson, who serves as the LGBTQ community liaison for Montgomery County. She has a deep commitment to social justice, diversity, and inclusion, advocacy, and educational equity. This passion began at the age of 5 on a ride with her grandfather to take people to the polls to vote in her hometown of Appomattox, Virginia. Amina specializes in training, facilitation, and curriculum development. She has 13 years of experience working in organizations focusing on outreach and engagement to the LGBTQ community. She's done this work in Prince George's County, Department of Social Services, George Mason University, supporting and mentoring youth advocates and leaders, and Georgetown University. Let's welcome Dr. Johnson.
Thank you so much for that great introduction, Jennifer. Hello, everyone. My name is Amina Johnson, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about that ride that my grandfather took me on. So when I was around 5 or so, I took a ride with my grandfather on election day. My grandfather used to drive around our town of Appomattox, Virginia, picking up people to take them to the polls if they didn't have a ride. Most of the people that he picked up were women. Now, in between those rides, and of course, after being handed a piece of candy by the women as they exited the car, my grandfather talked to me about the importance of voting. He would tell me how Black people hadn't always had the right to vote, and that it was really important that we exercise that right. The thing that strikes me the most to this day about those conversations is that my grandfather didn't tell me who to vote for or how to vote. He simply told me that I should vote. This lesson stuck with me. I registered to vote in high school a few weeks before I turned 18, and I've been voting ever since. I tell you this story because on that day, my grandfather and the women that he took to the polls inspired me to grow up and be a Black woman voter. Why is this important? It's important because women have been the majority of voters since the 1964 Civil Rights Act was put into place. Women overwhelmingly vote for civil rights and human rights. Black women and other people of color in particular vote for these things. You may be saying, aren't human rights and civil rights the same thing? And shouldn't we all be voting for them? Well, first, no, human rights and civil rights are actually different things. Human rights are the rights that we acquire just by being alive. And civil rights are the rights that we obtain by being legal members of the political state. Some examples of human rights are the right to life, the right to food, the right to education, the right to work. Some examples of civil rights are the right to free speech, the right to due process, and the right to equal protection under the law. I am of the opinion that we actually shouldn't be voting on human rights at all. They're human rights after all, and we should just have them simply because we're alive. But unfortunately, we do have to vote on human rights, or we elect leaders that have to vote on human rights. The right to life, the right to education, and the right to work are all human rights. And yet we've had to pass legislation to give all people equal access to health care. People have voted on policies to keep schools safe for LGBTQ students. And up until early 2021, LGBTQ people could be fired from their jobs just because of their identities. Now, I talk about LGBTQ people because that's the field that I work in. But I do know that women and Black women and other women of color in the US have had to fight for these rights and are still fighting to keep these human rights. I also happen to be a person that's affected when these human rights are stripped away. I'm Black, I'm a woman, and I'm a lesbian. Now, some of you may be saying, she's getting a little bit off track here. She's supposed to be talking about the importance of women voting. Well, I am. I am someone who benefits when women vote. We actually all benefit when women vote and support our human rights. The right to life. Women have higher levels of approval for the Affordable Care Act, and women show greater support for environmental protection legislation. The right to food. Women consistently show greater support for government programs that help the less fortunate and provide them with their basic needs. The right to education and the right to work. Women support legislation that ensures that LGBTQ youth have safe educational environments where they can learn, and that LGBTQ people won't be fired from their jobs simply because of their LGBTQ identity. While their specific views on these issues are nuanced and often vary by race, ethnicity, age, income, and other demographics, women consistently vote for human rights, and that's important. We must encourage young girls and young women to vote. Humanity depends on it. The women my grandfather picked up to take to the polls that day knew that, and my grandfather did too. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Johnson, for accepting the invite. You always come and deliver us with just amazing remarks. So I appreciate you. Thank you so much for sharing your story. And so now we will transition over to our next co-host. Board of Education member Shebra Evans will be introducing Hannah O'Looney, student member of the board. Thank you.
Sure, thank you, Lorianne. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Hannah O'Looney. She is currently a senior at Richard Montgomery High School, and she serves as our 44th student member on the Board of Education. With a passion for social justice, gender equality, and educational equity, Hannah previously served as a chair for the MoCo Empower Her, MCPS's Women's Empowerment Organization, and the vice president of the Montgomery County Regional Student Government Association. She currently serves as the youngest member of the global nonprofit Periods Youth Advisory Council, helping the leading menstrual equity movement with strategic planning, programming, and increased racial justice and inclusion. So without further ado, I introduce to you my colleague, Hannah O'Looney.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. Hello, everyone. As Ms. Evans just noted, my name is Hannah O'Looney, and I am currently serving as the 44th student member of the Montgomery County Public Schools Board of Education and the 13th woman to hold that position. I will be turning 18 in January, meaning that in November 2022, I'll be able to vote in an election for the very first time. I've been marching, protesting, speaking at town halls, and yes, being an elected official for the past 2 months. But in November 2022, I will finally be able to cast my own ballot for some local races and congressional seats. I'd be lying if I said that all of my peers are as excited as I am about this. In fact, many of them have already said that they are set on not participating, either because they feel it's a waste of time or they feel we live in such a progressive area that the winner is already predetermined. To which I respond that local elections are the most important of them all, especially in marginalized communities where history and lived experiences and even present legislative efforts in some parts of our country have made people feel like their vote and their voice don't matter. People have prevented themselves from voting before they're even legally able to. I mentioned at the very beginning of my statement that I am only the 13th woman to be in my current position as the student member of the school board. If you calculate the percentage, that's a little more than 1/4 of the MCPS student seat being held by a woman. And that's only a little better, but not by much, for people of color. Many in this room know firsthand that it only gets worse from there. You look at local governments, state officials, and even Congress, and the numbers are about the same, if not worse. That's why it's important more than ever to promote, protect, and encourage the right to vote, especially for women, people of color, and other communities that have historically been overlooked. In fact, I worked with over 100 student volunteers during the 2019 to 2020 school year before the infamous 2020 election to set up voter registration drives in our MCPS high schools, getting students as young as 16 to register to vote. We succeeded in adding over 1,000 students to the Maryland voter registration registry. We are incredibly privileged to live in a world, a country, and a district where the right to vote and participate in the creation of our own systems of government has been secured for us. And it's our time to make sure that laws and policies being passed are representative of all community members, not just the ones that have the resources to be vocal. That's where young people come in. New voters and soon-to-be voters haven't been involved in politics long enough to be jaded and accept that things can't change. We have an opportunity here to get my generation and our brothers and sisters, voters, to get excited about democracy, excited about elections, and excited about voting and voting for parties, policies, and people who can truly represent them and their interests. But until I'm old enough to cast my ballot, I promise you'll see me and my classmates continuing to march, protest, and testify until the planet is greener, our education is more equitable, our communities are safer, and our rights are equal. I'll see you all at the polls in November 2022.
Great, thank you so much for that. And I just want to take a moment and say thank you so much for all you do on the Board of Education, particularly your tweets. They keep all of us so well informed, and they're just beautiful graphics. So thank you so much for that. All right, next we have up as another co-host to introduce our next speaker, Melissa McKinney, who is the president of the Montgomery County Business and Professional Women, is up next to introduce our next speaker.
Good evening, welcome all. It is my extreme pleasure to welcome Belle Leong Hung, who is the founder, president, and CEO of Knowledge Advantage, Inc., a woman-owned small business that provides knowledge management and information technology solutions, strategic planning, policy and program analysis, and leadership development. During a 30-year distinguished career in federal government, Ms. Leong Hung served as the U.S. DoD Deputy Assistant Secretary for Command, Control, and Communications between 1995 and 1999. Making her the highest ranking career civilian Asian American and Pacific Islander woman to ever serve in that position at the DoD. Ms. Leong Hung has fiercely advocated for various Asian American ethnic groups experiencing disparities. She previously served as the Greater Washington, D.C. chapter president of the Asian Pacific American Advocates, or OCA DC, a nonprofit dedicated to advancing the social, political, and economic well-being of AAPIs. She launched annual OCA training programs focused on civil rights advocacy, Asian American civic engagement, and policy advocacy training for AAPI youth. It's because of this long-standing, prestigious career and work that she was, in 2020, named the Montgomery County Business and Professional Woman of Achievement. Ms. Leong Hung is a first-generation Chinese American who escaped the rise of communism in China and Cuba with her family. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so very much, Melissa, for that lovely, lovely introduction. I also want to thank all of the speakers so far. When Melissa first invited me, I said, my gosh, you have such a powerhouse lined up that I am really, really excited to be part of this. And I want to give a special shout out to Hana Oluni. You are our future, and I am so very proud of you. Thank you for your eloquence. I just wanted to share with you a little bit about my history, my story. I'm an immigrant, as Melissa said. I was, but first and probably most important for all of us here in Montgomery County, I am a 50+ year resident of Montgomery County. I came here right shortly after I graduated from college. But I want to tell you a little bit about why it is so important for me to be part of this program. I was born in China, and when I was a toddler, my mother actually smuggled me out of China, of communist China. They were closing in, and it was a fratricide that was going on in our village. We ended up in Cuba, where my grandfather had some businesses, and so we thought that we were going to, live the rest of our lives in Cuba. And little did we know, fate would have it that communism also hit Cuba. And so my mother once again engineered for us to escape communism. So escaping communism twice in my lifetime gave me a fierce understanding of how powerful it is to be able to vote. As you can well imagine, neither China back then, nor probably not now, and nor Cuba would allow anybody to vote, let alone women. And so to be able to come to this country and to be able to exercise the right to vote was a gift beyond measure. Fast forward, I also want to tell you that my mother, in all this time that she lived here, and she just passed away 2 years ago, never spoke English very well. Nonetheless, the one act that she would always do was every single November, she would vote, whether it was a local election or it was a general election, federal election. And we would all have to sit by my mother and explain to her what each candidate stood for and what she was voting for. And yeah, I kind of influenced that a little bit, but, got a chance to explain the goods and the bads. And, but one thing that my mother was very, very religious about was she got to vote. And the rest of my family did too. But fast forward, as I became much more active, both in the civil rights movement when I was working through OCA, as well as later on in my later career life, it became even more important because the ability of an immigrant to vote was important, but an immigrant woman to vote was even more important. And that was never lost on me. And so each and every single election cycle, I spend a lot of time trying to organize to get people out to vote. I organized to get people to register to vote. And the most important thing the most important discussion that I have with a lot of my fellow immigrants is, most of you came from a country that could not vote. Here we have the gift of being able to have a say in how our government can run. We are able to have a say in influencing the direction of the government, and that is through our vote. So thankfully, my conversations with my fellow immigrants has helped. And so we continue the fight. So once again, thank you very much for having me. This has been an absolute pleasure to listen to all of these wonderful speakers.
Thank you so much, Belle, for sharing that story of triumph and for overcoming so much adversity. And we are so glad to have you here leading statewide to ensure more women and more immigrants are ensuring that they are practicing their right to vote. Thank you. And last but not least, we are going to get to our second to last speaker. We are going to have our co-host, Christina Major, introduce our next speaker. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. It is my great honor to introduce Diane Fink. She has been the executive director of Emerge Maryland since its founding 10 years ago. She was named Woman of the Year by the Frederick County Democratic Central Committee. top 100 women in Maryland by the Daily Record, and one of 30 women shaping Baltimore's future by Baltimore Magazine. She has been involved in Maryland politics since the turn of the century and is working towards parity for all women in politics in Maryland. So once again, it's my honor to introduce Diane, and I'm gonna turn it over to you now.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the invitation to talk to all of you today on this auspicious occasion. And I have to say, coming after all of these amazing women is slightly intimidating, but I'm going to relax into this and I'm going to tell you, give you my message now. I actually had written something out, and then day before yesterday, I was sitting and talking with a young mother who had been through the Emerge Maryland Candidate Training Program. And she gave birth not long after graduating from our program and was really blindsided by motherhood. She struggled for the last 18 months. She's been struggling with all of the things that took her by surprise, from the medical bills, not just of giving birth, but her child was ill at the time of her birth, and so had to have extra care. And so there were more medical bills, taking care of the sick child, and some slight complications during birth also, so she needed care. And then having to look into childcare for her baby when she was trying to think about going back to work. And that blew her away. She said there were, everything was full, it was expensive. She was trying to find a job that would cover not only the childcare, but help cover her bills. And enrolling the baby in the subsequent childcare levels meant that you had to do it years in advance. She was just blown away, and she was talking to me about this. And in the end, she said, I don't know what to do, except that I guess each mother is just left to her own devices to figure this out for herself. And I was really struck by that. And I thought, that's not true. I mean, she really needs support and a support system, but in a large way, it is true as well. And it made me think about, this is why we need more women to be elected to office. All of these issues have been back burner issues in our patriarchal society. All of the issues and more, so many more, have been set aside as, not that important, or they won't get me reelected. So the more women that we get elected to public office, I think we're going to see these becoming, and we are seeing them becoming, front burner issues. These issues and many, many more. And then even more women we continue to get elected, we're going to see these become public policy changes and law. And so when we talk about why do we need to see more women elected to office, and it's not just more women, it's more women of color, more women from different backgrounds, such as the LGBTQAI community, all of the communities, the immigrant communities, the communities of disabilities, of women with disabilities. We forget that in Maryland, 1 in 20 women, or I'm sorry, 1 in 20 of our citizens are deaf or hard of hearing. We have a huge deaf and hard of hearing community. I fall in the hard of hearing category, and it would be really great if everything were captioned so that I could take part in everything. But these are the issues that women bring to the table. And so this is why we do the work that we do. We've built a very powerful network across the state. We've had 15 of our women are now serving in the Maryland General Assembly, and the Women's Caucus is majority. Well, the Democratic Women's Caucus, the Democratic Caucus in the General Assembly is majority women, and that is definitely because of the hard work that we have done here in Maryland. So I want to just say that if there's anybody here who has thought about running for office or know somebody that should be running for office, we are not, fly by night. We've been here 10 years. We're going to continue to do this work. We still need this work to be done, but we need all of you to be part of it. You are the women out there with the eyes and the ears on the women around you. You know who would be great serving in local offices. We need to build benches because we see many people retiring out of their seats and moving on to different seats. And, we have to be ready to grab those seats. When another woman retires, we need somebody to come in and take her place. It's not just good enough to build these numbers and then walk away. It's constant work. So we need all of you. I just want to give a shout out to Hannah O'Looney. I met her online, I think. She had me do something with I think it was the Empower Her group, and she's fantastic. I have my eye on her, and I think a lot of you do too. I think she would make a great elected official at higher office one day, and I have no doubt that that's her aspiration. We need more like her. And like I said, we need you to help us find these women. So recruiting these women, getting them elected, and making sure that, we're seeing them, having their back, and making sure that while they serve in office, we continue to have their back so that they can do their job with confidence and know that they're doing the right thing by all of us, as we will by them, in making sure that they get the support they need through their campaign and into their term as elected officials. I just think it's great that we're celebrating these milestones. We know that we have a lot of work to do in the communities of color and the immigrant communities and many other communities that are that we can all list here, that to have equity, it means including all. So that has been the goal of Emerge since the first day we started. And we made sure that our classes were filled with women who represented all ages. The rising American electorate is definitely somebody to keep, these people are somebody to keep an eye on, and we need to nurture them. And as Hannah said, they are not always maybe all excited about voting, but the way we can get them excited about voting is making sure our representatives are listening to them as well. So I want to thank you for giving me the time to speak. I want to thank everybody else who spoke, and I'm really enjoying this evening. Thank you all for coming tonight, and have a great night.
Great, thanks, Anne. And I know we are all looking forward to when we can be in person again and enjoy an Emerge event. It's been too long until we can celebrate the great work that you do. Now we're going to bring back Jeanette to introduce, I believe, our final speaker for this evening before we move on to the rest of the program. Jeanette is going to introduce County Councilwoman Nancy Navarro for us this evening. If I can find Jeanette, I will flip it over to you.
I'm here.
And I believe Jeanette is still president of the Montgomery chapter of now. So go ahead.
Yes, I am. Okay. I'm very honored to introduce my county council member, Nancy Navarro. She represents my district, although she represents all of Montgomery County for sure. She's been on the Montgomery County Council since 2009 and was reelected in 2010, 2014, and 2018, where she has twice served as council president and vice president. She chairs the Government Operations and Fiscal Policy Committee and serves on the Education and Culture Committee. She's the first Latina immigrant member of the council. Her most recent accomplishments are authoring the framework for the county's early care and education initiative and leading the adoption of the region's first Racial Equity and Social Justice Act. Nancy has used her position on the council to encourage economic growth and development in traditionally underserved regions, and in 2019, she spearheaded the county's economic development platform. Before joining the council, Nancy served on the county's Board of Education and co-founded a nonprofit organization to assist Latina women and other immigrant communities. I give you Nancy Navarro.
Thank you, Jeanette, and thank you to all the hostesses in all these organizations. I am so excited to be here with all of you. As I looked around this virtual room, I recognize so many extraordinarily fearless leaders, and each and every one of you has been playing and will be also, I think, playing a significant role here in our county. And so the theme for this year's celebration, the 101st anniversary, is Women of the Movement. And I have been trying to take a little bit of time every day to reflect on what we have been through and what we're continuing to face. And when I think about this theme of Women of the Movement, I am reminded that this movement has to continue. And as a matter of fact, I think it has to go on overdrive. Because what we are facing as a county, as a state, as a nation, as the world, is so unprecedented and it's happening so fast that is shifting, is transforming our communities. When we think about what this pandemic actually has meant for our county, for our nation, for the world, when we think about the disproportionality and how it just very quickly, all these disparities just came to the forefront, and how at the very beginning, I will say, with the previous administration, local leaders had to really fend for themselves to get things on some sort of track. And to imagine that we're still dealing now with a resurgence because of the variant. To think about the renewed reckoning with systemic racism and how it has unleashed this absolute renewed recognition that we have got to deal with these issues in a structural fashion. When we think about the economic impacts of this pandemic, especially when it relates to women who have been disproportionately affected. We have seen a lot of research and data on this. And then you add to that the 2020 census results, where we are seeing the birth rates are declining, where we are seeing that at least in the United States of America, the young population is predominantly of color. And then we have to then think through what that means to our prosperity, right? Our ability to compete in this global stage. So we are in the middle of this extraordinary transformation, and women play a pivotal role, protagonist role in getting us through all of this. I am now, I've always been, but I'm now more convinced than ever that we have got to do everything in our power to, number one, make sure that we support women who step up to run, that we do everything in our power to make sure that we organize and mobilize women, because even though we do vote at very high, much higher numbers, we need to solidify and protect the right to vote. We've seen the attacks that are happening nationally. We understand the consequences of all of this. And of course, it's not a coincidence. There is a lot of fear out there. With the advent of social media, in my opinion, what we have now seen is almost just a runaway train of disinformation that has had real significant negative consequences. And so I don't want to be gloom and doom or negative Nancy, but what I want to do is make sure that we all understand that we are at, I think, a crossroads, a pivotal moment. And I am, again, convinced that women need to lead this transformation. And so I am very inspired by, many of the women who are here today, who are running, who are stepping up. Because as an immigrant, and my story was a bit different. I came to the United States to go to college, following on my father's footsteps. I ended up falling in love and getting married. And 30 years later, here I am as a mother of two extraordinary young Afro-Latina, young professional women. I am very aware, because I've lived all the stages of thinking that I could make a difference, wanting to step up, thinking that in a county like ours, it would just be a wonderful experience to run for office. And very, very early on than getting all these barriers just thrown at me, right? People that I admired very much, even saying to me, you should wait your turn. And isn't that what they always tell us? They always tell us to wait our turn. They always tell us that it's not our time. They always tell us that we don't understand complicated issues like land use or fiscal policies or environmental policies and things like that. Stay in your lane, stay in education. The reality is that we know that in order to inspire other women, we have to occupy these spaces. We need to make sure that we are there. Sometimes people tell me, oh my gosh, you're the only woman, which is another entire, conversation. But the truth is, and people say, what are you going to do? And sometimes I say, well, as an immigrant woman, as a Latino woman, I think that occupying this space and trying to do a good job is important too, because inevitably, I will have young women come up to me and say, thank you for being there, because one day I want to run for office, and I see you up there, and I see you be the only one, and I know that it's possible. And so I am a firm believer that we need to mentor, that we need to groom, and that we need to also not just talk about the nice and the inspirational stories about the difference that you can make. But I also think that we need to talk about the nitty-gritty challenges, because I didn't know when I decided to run. I learned the hard way. And many of you who are here in this room know that whenever you call me and say, can we have coffee, I will meet with you and I will share everything I can. Because I also believe in the power of generosity and in the power of making sure that we don't keep anything for ourselves. It's a big county, it's a big state, it's a big nation, and the needs are extraordinary. So yes, balancing being a woman and finding that balance in elected office it definitely is of a different ilk, and it definitely requires quite a bit of a commitment, and you do have to grow that thick skin. But it's very, very important that we band together, that we stick together, that we support each other, and we build each other up and lift each other up. So I want to thank you for hosting this event, and I want to thank you for everything again that all of you do in your spaces, because we're not out of the woods yet in terms of this fight with this pandemic, in terms of addressing all of that myriad of issues. But I am very proud to serve with a group of men who have stepped up to get us back on track, during this pandemic. And when we look at other jurisdictions, I'm so grateful and proud to serve alongside so many folks, and that we have a amazing community here in Montgomery County that has also stepped up and done the right thing. So again, I commend all of you, I applaud you, and I say that we keep fighting and that we celebrate continued success and bring more women to those ranks, because we need women at all levels, for sure. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Navarro. We are so grateful for your leadership. You are a trailblazer and a treasure. As we close out the program, we want to ensure that we take time to pay tribute to some of the other trailblazing women who are unable to join us this evening. I mentioned Linda Mahoney at the beginning of my remarks, and Susan Horst will share a little bit more in tribute to our good friend who we lost during the pandemic.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Lorianne. We do have a slide of Linda Mahoney. Many of you knew Linda. She was an advocate, a friend, a mentor, and a women's rights champion. She passed away, sadly, on March 8th, which was International Women's Day this year. And she was a member of NOW. She was a former president of Maryland NOW and treasurer. She was also a member of Montgomery County Business and Professional Women, and she was honored as their Woman of Achievement in 2017. She was a law school graduate. She was a staunch supporter of the Maryland Women's Heritage Center and served on its board. And she also was very active and a member of the Montgomery County Democratic Central Committee. So she was so supportive of every organization. And I'm sure there were other, I think the Women's Law Center, she was also very active in. She was originally from Arizona and came here to go to law school. And she is the oldest of 7 children. And her family asked her Maryland friends to help organize her memorial service. So there will be a memorial service for her on Saturday, September 25th at the F. Scott Fitzgerald Theater in Rockville, and everyone is invited. We do ask that you RSVP. We'll be wearing masks. And of course, the auditorium is very large. You can space out. We just wanted to remember her legacy and remember the women who came before us. Unfortunately, Linda did not get to see the Equal Rights Amendment become law, and we hope that it will happen in our lifetime. And we thank everyone who has been working for equal rights for all these years, and we're not done yet. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Susan, for those warm remarks. We really appreciate all that Linda did and will continue to work in her absence. We are now at the conclusion of our program. So again, I would just like to once again thank all of the incredible women who joined us over the past 6 weeks to help with planning all of this, all of these events. Thank you to our attendees. If we can go back to that last slide with the co-hosts, and then we will close out. We want to be respectful of everyone's time. So thank you again to each of our speakers. Again, that included Council Member Navarro. We also had Diane Fink from Emerge Maryland, Bell Leong Hong from the Maryland Democratic Party. We also had Hannah O'Looney, student member of the board, Dr. Amina Johnson, the county's LGBTQ liaison, Amanda Learman from Supermajority, and to our incredible co-hosting organizations, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Theta Omega Omega Chapter, Montgomery County Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, Montgomery County Business and Professional Woman, MoCo Woman, Montgomery County Chapter National Organization for Women, Montgomery Woman, Woman in NAACP, Montgomery County, Maryland Branch, and Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, Eta Pi Zeta Chapter. Thank you all again, and happy Women's Equality Day. Hope to see you all next year.
Take care, everybody.
Night, everyone. Thanks.
Thank you.
Have a good night, everyone.
Good night,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Take care.
Night, everybody.
Have a good night. Thank you so much for coming in and participating.
Would someone please save the chat before we leave?
Oh, good idea. Thank you, Susan.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Good night.